Welcome to Success Weekly with James Tharris, a weekly dose of thought-provoking ideas and helpful tips on improving your mindset. And now, here's your host, James Tharris.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Success Weekly. I'm your host, James Tharris, and we are going to jump into Chapter 9. Today we're going to be talking about the failure mechanism, how to make it work for you instead of against you. Now they've put this clever little acronym here that kind of spells out all of the, let me see how many there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's another 7 things to avoid, because these are 7 things that I guess people who have a lot of failures tend to display or tend to have as habits. And the word is failure, and then each one of the letters is an acronym. So F stands for frustration, hopelessness, or futility. A stands for aggressiveness, and then misdirected aggressiveness is what they're talking about. I is for insecurity. L is for loneliness, and then which they have it highlighted as lack of oneness. That's what they mean by loneliness. Letter U, uncertainty, and letter R, resentment. They harbor resentment, and letter E stands for emptiness. So what they basically say is that frustration is an emotional feeling which develops whenever some important goal cannot be realized or when some strong desire is thwarted. Now, as a martial arts instructor, I have experienced this on both sides of the fence, and probably a third side of the fence if you want to get very technical about it. There was a time in my training, I can remember wanting to learn something really, really badly from my master instructor, and he basically said, no, you can't learn that. And I was very frustrated because that was a goal that I had for a very long time, and I figured if I asked him just at the right time and the right way that I would be able to learn this, and I was told no. So I was very frustrated at that moment. I also know that he was very frustrated with me in a couple of instances. And then there are opportunities for frustration to rear its head when students get involved in training, and sometimes it comes from their parents, and they've got kind of a timeline set for when they're going to earn their black belts, and sometimes it just doesn't happen on that particular time frame, and they're going to end up, it's going to be another 6 months or 1 year, or sometimes 2 years or 3 years, depending upon that student and their heart, their desire for success and succeeding, earning their black belts, and their aptitude. What are they capable of doing? Sometimes I think we get we bite off more than we can chew in terms of what we can really accomplish and by when. And of course, we also do just the opposite, and sometimes we throw ourselves under the bus and don't give ourselves enough credit for things that we probably could do. So there's kind of a catch-22 situation going on there. So the frustration, that's the first one. And it says chronic frustration usually means that the goals that we've set for ourselves are unrealistic, or the image we have of ourselves is inadequate, or both. So again, it's kind of sometimes we set too high of expectations, and then we get upset and frustrated when we don't achieve them, which is why in setting goals, you want to set them just out of reach. You want to set your goal to the point where it makes your skin crawl a little bit, or you get that nervous pit in your stomach, the nervous feeling in the pit of your stomach when you think about what you're going to have to do to achieve it. But you can actually do it. Then that's a worthy goal, and that will help you thwart some of that frustration. It says, don't lash out blindly, concentrate your fire. I think they're talking more about the aggressive. It says, we must go out after what we want in an aggressive rather than a defensive or tentative manner. And we must grapple with problems aggressively. So excessive and misdirected aggressiveness follows frustration as night follows day. And they went on to talk about a little group of scientists who did a study and found some of these things here. So it's very interesting, and there's a ton of stuff in this chapter, so I'm kind of skipping around. Knowledge gives you power. If you feel like snapping at someone, stop and ask yourself, is this merely my own frustration at work? And what has frustrated me? And that's an important thing to remember for, if you might come home and your wife gets upset and she, snaps at you as the husband, or vice versa, and without realizing that she's been home dealing with the kids who've been screaming and yelling all day, and it really wasn't you she was frustrated about. It was just you happened to ask the question that kind of broke the straw that broke the camel's back type of thing, and maybe she got upset and shouted at you, and you took it personally. I know I've done things like that myself, but so we have to stop and think about, why is somebody getting to this point? Was it really me, or was it really them? And it's a good kind of healthy thing. Okay, loneliness. Doing things with other people and enjoying things with other people helps us to forget ourselves. Boy, I'll tell you, I can't tell you how true of this statement I find that to be. I might have been having a miserable day personally, but as soon as the classes begin and I come in and the students are ready to learn, and I get involved in helping students overcome fears and doubts, and maybe sitting down and counseling with a student who had a problem at school or something, my troubles seem to melt away, and I forget about how small my own problems and troubles are by working with other people and being around other people. So I think that's a very, very important thing to remember. Let's see here. Okay, now as far as fear of something, here's a little interesting piece here. It says, constant exposure to the object of fear immunizes against the fear. So what is he really saying, basically? Face your fears. Constant exposure to the object of fear immunizes against the fear. So how many times have you thought one thing about a person? Maybe you thought they were mean and nasty and unfriendly, and then you got to know them a little bit better, and you just found out that they just had a drier personality, and actually they were very friendly and very funny and very accepting of you, and it was totally the opposite of what you thought. That happens a lot, I think, to people, and it's about getting around the thing that you're afraid to do or think about, or the situation you're afraid to embrace. The more you get around it, the less you have of that fear. Again, it kind of immunizes you against whatever it was you were afraid of. Okay, next one said uncertainty, and it says the greatest mistake a man can make is to be afraid of making one. Isn't that funny? The greatest mistake a man can make is to be afraid of making one. And how many of us have that problem? We're afraid to make a move because we might make the wrong move. Man, that rings true with me still. And it's kind of a paralyzing thing. But sometimes you have to learn how to make a decision and then make that decision the right one for you. It depends on are you going to get your hair colored, and what color for women mainly? What color are you going to go with? Are you going to go with blonde? Are you going to go with brunette? Are you going to go red? Or are you going to go something crazy like blue or purple? With so many decisions, it's difficult to make a choice at all. You have to decide, I'm going to go with purple, and I'm going to stick with that decision. And by gosh, that's what's happening today. Same thing as like walking into Baskin-Robbins 36 flavors or whatever, however many they have today. It's such a difficult task to try to choose your ice cream cone because you're trying to not make the wrong mistake, and you end up not making a decision at all. So I don't know if you've ever had that situation, but man, for me, I like so many different flavors, it's difficult. I prefer just to have the flavors of vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry like we used to have. It made it a lot easier. But even then, if you had that third option, if you had vanilla or chocolate and then they threw the strawberry in the mix, that really kind of made it difficult, didn't it? So, again, I prefer just maybe chocolate or vanilla. Today I feel like having chocolate ice cream. Tomorrow I might decide I'm going to have vanilla, or I might decide that I just like vanilla better and I'm just going to stick with that. It makes choices so much easier. So the more choices we have, the less apt we are to make choices, and that's kind of what this is talking about. And it's easy to get or feel uncertain about something, but that's why we have coaches to help us feel more certain about decisions we're making. That's the importance of listening to podcasts like this, to help us maybe come to a decision, and have somebody that's maybe been there before us give us their 2 cents on it. Okay, it says only little men are never wrong. Very true. Big men and big personalities make mistakes and admit them. You have to. You've got to be willing to admit when you make a mistake. Nobody on this earth is perfect, and to try to pretend like we are perfect and we don't make mistakes, well, that's just ridiculous. It is the little man who is afraid to admit he has been wrong. No man ever became great or good except through many and great mistakes. We learn wisdom from failure much more than from success. We often discover what will do by finding out what will not do. And probably he who never made a mistake never made a discovery. Wow, so powerful there. Okay, then it goes on to talk about resentment. And let's see what it says about resentment. It says the real cause of resentment. Would you like would you like to know what the real cause of resentment is? Have you ever experienced resentment? Maybe this is going to be a bombshell for you then. Remember that your resentment is not caused by other persons, events, or circumstances. It is caused by your own emotional response, your own reaction. You alone have power over this, and you can control it if you firmly convince yourself that resentment and self-pity are not ways to happiness and success, but ways to defeat and unhappiness. Boy, that's another bombshell right there. How many times have we found ourselves feeling resentment towards somebody else? Maybe it was resentment towards a friend or our brother or sister, or towards our spouse for something. If we were to step back and analyze it, the resentment was really our own fault. We have the resentment because of how we chose to respond to whatever it was that happened. And think about how it must feel to be on the other side of that when somebody harbors resentment towards you and you feel like it's unjust and you didn't really deserve that resentment, but for some reason they harbor this resentment. I mean, that's more on them, and those are really the things that cause sickness and illness and things in people's bodies, is holding on to that anger and that resentment towards somebody else. It just harms us. So you've got to learn to get rid of that. Okay, number 7, it's the last one, is emptiness. And it says, life becomes worthwhile when you have worthwhile goals. Striving for real success, for your success through creative accomplishment, brings a deep inner satisfaction. Striving for a phony success to please others brings a phony satisfaction. So yes, you do have to learn how to set and reset goals and have something to look forward to doing. And that's really the only way towards fulfillment in this life. Sitting back and doing nothing and being nothing and complaining about things, well, that's never made anybody successful as far as I know. So I charge you this week, and I guess today's a little bit of a kind of a discombobulated podcast, because some of the thoughts were like all over the place there. But that's kind of how the brain works sometimes. That you go from one thought to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's those little bombshells that you get from picking up a book like this after reading it word for word and highlighting those special, important little pieces like that that could be used to solve a problem today. If I had a problem today, I might just open the book to that particular page and go to a highlighted section, and whatever I read there might be the answer to my problem in that particular instance. So you just never can underestimate the power of reading. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We'll be back next week, and we'll be talking from chapter 10 next week. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments, and be sure to like it and share it.
That's all for this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Success Weekly. Do you have an idea you'd like James to talk about in an upcoming episode? Post your comments and be sure to share this podcast with friends.